Vietnam is an increasingly popular destination, but has all this popularity come at a cost? In this video, we're going to share what nobody else is telling you about which parts of Vietnam are still worth visiting. That way, you don't waste your vacation time and money on tourist traps. Ha Long Bay is one of the most iconic landscapes in Vietnam. Sadly, it might also be the best example of over-tourism. What used to be a beautiful natural landscape has turned into a mess of hundreds of boats taking tourists for day trips or overnight cruises. To top it all off, intensive fish farming and the ensuing pollution has become a huge industry that's impossible to miss as soon as you get close to Cat Ba Island. We didn't discover all of this until after our boat tour, and it definitely detracted from our experience. We also opted to spend 2 nights on Cat Ba Island, just so we didn't have to go back and forth to Hanoi on the same day. But more on that in a bit. Does this mean that you should skip Ha Long Bay entirely? Honestly, that's a decision you have to make for yourself. The landscape is still really pretty, and there are some places where if you ignore the other boats, you can get a sense of what the bay would have looked like before mass tourism. However, I would definitely avoid a tour that only does Ha Long Bay, as that area is completely overcrowded and polluted. Instead, make sure you opt for a tour that goes to Lan Ha Bay as well. You'll still sail through Ha Long Bay and see that landscape, but most of the activities, such as swimming or kayaking, will take place in Lan Ha Bay, where the water's at least a bit cleaner and there's less tourists. I'll put a link in the description below where you can find some boat tours that include Lan Ha Bay. Now let's talk about Cat Ba Island. This is where most of the boat tours leave from, and also where you're most likely to spend the night if you're not doing an overnight cruise. Unfortunately, the entire island is one huge tourist town. The prices are inflated compared to elsewhere, and the food is awful. Although, if you like seafood, you might have a better experience than we did. If I really wanted to visit Ha Long Bay again, I think I would do it as a day tour from Hanoi. It is a very long day, but it allows you to skip a night on Cat Ba Island. The good news is that there is a place in Vietnam that has similar views to Ha Long Bay, but is a much better experience. So keep watching to find out exactly where that is. Unlike Ha Long Bay, Ninh Binh is a place that does not disappoint, and it very quickly became our favorite place in Vietnam. Sometimes referred to as the inland Ha Long Bay, the area is so pretty that we ended up spending almost a week here after only originally planning to spend 3 days. In fact, I would be tempted to skip Ha Long Bay altogether and visit Ninh Binh instead. Before you call me a crazy person in the comments, let me explain. Ninh Binh is the starting point for visiting the UNESCO heritage site of Trang An. This beautiful and protected water landscape features the same karst and limestone islets that you'll find in Ha Long Bay. But because this area is protected and run by the government, it's well maintained and clean. It really is night and day compared to Ha Long Bay. In Trang An, you get to float along the water quietly in a rowboat, admiring the beautiful and lush islands. You also get to discover the incredible history behind the ancient temples that are hidden away from the outside world. Compare this to the dirty, loud, and overcrowded experience that is Ha Long Bay, and I'm sure you can appreciate why both my wife and I thought that Ninh Binh was a significantly better experience. I used to work as an award-winning travel agent, and my clients would often ask me about the best things to see and do in the country they were visiting. That's why we've created an interactive Google map and travel guide. Our travel guide also includes tips on how to avoid some of the most common mistakes that travelers make in Vietnam. The map includes location pins for the top sites to visit, our favorite street food and restaurants, along with some hidden gems that we discovered on our trip. Our personal tips are also included in each map pin. That way you can get the most out of every location. Download the map directly into your Google Maps app and you'll be able to find the best spots at the click of a button when you're traveling, which you can download below. Aside from Trang An, the entire landscape around Ninh Binh is also really pretty, with lots of limestone mountains seemingly popping up out of the ground amongst the rice paddies. Calling Ninh Binh the inland version of Ha Long Bay is really a great way to describe it. You can easily spend many hours happily exploring the area by scooter or bicycle and finding little hidden temples along the way. There's also a lot more than just Trang An to see in Ninh Binh, including the famous Hang Mua mountain, where if you can manage the 500 steps to the top, you'll be rewarded with a beautiful panorama of the surrounding landscape. Now let's talk about Sapa. This bustling town, tucked away in the mountains of northwest Vietnam, is famous for its lush mountains and the rice fields that have been painstakingly terraced into the hillsides. Although Sapa is the most famous mountain town in Vietnam, I feel a bit conflicted about recommending it. In many ways, it's overdeveloped, and the rice paddies that used to dot every hillside are slowly giving way to more and more hotels. We also noticed a lot of plastic waste littering the hillsides. Compared to Tram Tao, a secluded corner of northwest Vietnam that we visited first, Sapa just felt grungy and over-touristed. Unfortunately, unless you have your own transportation or are okay paying between 3 to 4 million Vietnamese dong for a private transfer from Hanoi to Tram Tao, then Sapa is realistically your only easy option for getting a glimpse of the beautiful northwestern part of Vietnam. If you've done any research about Sapa or have been in the town for more than 5 minutes, you'll probably know that the biggest activity is trekking. Every man, woman and dog in Sapa is going to try and get you to do a trekking tour. My advice is not to do it. You can visit all the places they take you to on your own. And although I do hugely admire the stamina of the local women who are running the treks, most of the trek is just trudging along the main road. We saw so many groups of tourists looking absolutely miserable as they were walking behind a guide along the main road just to get further into the mountains from Sapa town. But before I tell you what I recommend instead of the trekking tours, make sure you subscribe for more no-nonsense travel tips that'll help you plan your own grand adventure. Instead of doing a trekking tour, I recommend that you rent a scooter and then use our travel guide and map, which you can download below. And on that, we've marked all the great hikes and local villages. This will save you hours of walking along the main road just to get to the pretty locations. It's exactly what we did, and we had a great time exploring the mountains on our own and zipping past the groups trekking along the road. Now, there are some pretty big potholes in the road, and Vietnamese drivers like to cut the corners, so make sure you stay to the side of the road, especially when going around a corner. Some of the dirt roads can also get a little bit tricky if it's been raining, so make sure you get some practice in on your scooter before you start tackling the mountain roads. Sapa town itself is also quite interesting. There's lots of fun restaurants to try eating at, and there's also a unique chestnut cake which is local to Sapa. You'll find a lot of places selling it, but I recommend finding a place that's making them fresh and then eating them when they're piping hot. If you're not able to explore Vietnam with your own transportation, then I do think that Sapa is worth visiting. It's only a 6.5-hour drive from Hanoi, and there's tons of bus connections, so getting to Sapa is really easy. You can get bus tickets for as low as $8. But if you want a sleeper bus or limousine, then it's around $15 for a one-way ticket. Next up is Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. Hanoi is probably the most famous city in Vietnam, known for its old quarter that still features French colonial architecture, and of course as the final resting place of Ho Chi Minh. I had spent a week in Hanoi way back in 2012, and I had really fond memories of that trip. I remember walking around the streets with my old school paper map, trying delicious pho, and being one of the few tourists walking around. Fast forward to our latest visit in 2025, and Hanoi has changed completely. It's become a lot more cosmopolitan, crowded, and of course, exponentially more touristy. Most vendors were a lot more brusque as well, although I will say that was mainly in the old quarter where every second shop seemed to be trying to sell something to tourists. But in all fairness, that's no different than any other major tourist city around the world. We spent 4 days exploring Hanoi, but instead of staying in the old quarter, we stayed at a lovely homestay in a local neighborhood. We quickly discovered that most restaurants in the old quarter were more expensive than our local neighborhood, and it was obvious that the vast majority were also exclusively targeted towards tourists. We did manage to find a really friendly young guy who had recently started a banh mi stall, and his prices were way less than the nearby banh mi queen where all the tourists were lining up. So make sure you go visit him if you find yourself in Hanoi. As I alluded to, I would recommend staying outside of the Old Quarter, as it'll give you a chance to explore the more local neighborhoods and try eating at places that are actually catering to locals and not just to tourists. I also find it more interesting to see the local side of a city and not just the tourist side. For example, we had the best egg coffee, which is a local drink that Hanoi is known for, at a coffee chain in our local neighborhood. And none of the other places that we tried it were actually very good at all. Taking a grab into the Old Quarter for some sightseeing is also very cheap, so you don't need to worry about having to walk everywhere just because you're not staying in the Old Quarter. If you have any questions about visiting Vietnam, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer every single one of them. Given its historical importance, Hanoi also has several important cultural sites that are well worth visiting. The first cultural site you're likely to come across is Hoan Kiem Lake. As you're walking around the lake, you'll also come across the Nop Son Temple, which is worth a quick visit. And as always, I'm really sorry about my Vietnamese pronunciations, so please forgive me. In the temple, they have the preserved bodies of the huge soft-shell turtles that used to live in the lake, and whose ancestors, according to legend, reclaimed the magical sword that Li Loi had used to defeat Ming China. This legend is also how the lake gets its name, which is Sword Lake. Another place that is definitely worth visiting is the Temple of Literature, which was constructed in 1070. However, the most iconic part of the temple that we see today are the stone steels, which honor the students who passed the rigorous imperial exams. That tradition ended in 1779, but even to this day, students will come to the temple in order to pray for good luck with their own exams. The last key cultural site to visit is the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum. Situated in a grand park landscape close to the National Assembly building, the mausoleum is a striking structure. Visiting the mausoleum feels like you're entering a place of worship. When you enter, you have to be quiet, take off your sunglasses and any hat that you might be wearing. You then slowly walk around the elevated platform and look down on the preserved body of Ho Chi Minh. There's also a Ho Chi Minh museum that you can visit if you want to learn more about Ho Chi Minh's history. Now that we've discussed places that you should see, let's talk about the places that you might want to miss, or at the very least just take a photo of and then leave. Unless you really love your nightlife, then Beer Street is probably not the place for you. It was fun seeing it, but 10 minutes was more than enough for us. As the name would suggest, Beer Street is one long street where all the bars seem to be congregated, and they're all trying to see who's got the loudest speakers and who can get the most tourists into their bar. You'll also find women dancing in bikinis, looking bored, and touts trying to get you to go into their bar. Maybe when I was 18, this could have been a fun street to have some beers with a group of friends, but at the grand old age of 39, it was too much for me. Last but not least is the infamous Train Street. Situated along a stretch of the railway that cuts through the Old Quarter, this street has become one of the main tourist attractions in Hanoi. We did it as part of the food tour we did, and although it was a unique and a bit frightening experience, I'm not sure that I would recommend it. Part of that reasoning is that I hate being in a huge group of tourists. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I always feel like I failed if I'm doing the same thing as every other tourist. But at the same time, it is a crazy experience to be sitting right next to a railway track in the Old Quarter of Hanoi whilst drinking a beer or sipping on a cup of egg coffee and then having a train rush past you less than a foot from where you're sitting. As you can probably imagine, authorities have been trying to shut down this activity for several years now. But despite multiple government bans, it's still going on. Our next stop is Hoi An, which is a lovely city in central Vietnam known for its old town that has managed to survive the rapid urbanization that has taken over many other places in Vietnam, including its bigger neighbor to the north, Da Nang. Despite being a major stop on the tourist route, we really enjoyed our days in Hoi An. Until the river began to silt up, Hoi An was a major trading hub in Vietnam, where produce and goods from all around the country and also around the world would flow into and out of Hoi An. There also was a big Japanese presence initially, and that was later replaced by a big Chinese influence. All this has led to some unique dishes in Hoi An, such as khao lao, that you won't find anywhere else in Vietnam. In general, there is a really good food scene in Hoi An. We found lots of great local spots to eat at, but there were also some excellent Western-oriented restaurants. One of our favorite lunch spots ended up being Bikini Bottom Express, which is an American-style restaurant with a really interesting Vietnamese flair, and it's located right by the beach. I can honestly say it's the best tacos we've had outside of the southern US or Mexico. We also found an excellent noodle stand at the entrance to the main shopping street in Hoi An, where we can enjoy a bowl of khao lao before wandering into the old town. Speaking of shopping, if you're a shopaholic, then Hoi An will definitely not leave you wanting. All the big brands are represented here, from Patagonia to North Face. But I'll let you be the judge of how real they are. If you love haggling, the stall owners will definitely put your skills to the test, so don't feel bad about offering 20% off their original price. Hoi An is also known for its tailors and leather shoe shops. I looked at a few of the leather shops, but I was never particularly impressed by the quality of the leather or the craftsmanship. If you are in the market for a new pair of clothes or shoes, make sure you read the Google reviews very carefully. We do go over this in more detail in our other Vietnam video, which you can find linked here. This is especially true for the tailors and the leather shops, as they are so reliant on the tourist trade. As a general rule, just make sure you filter for the lowest reviews first and see if you're okay with that experience. On the topic of tourist traps, Hoi An is also the starting point for the infamous coconut basket boat tours. After reading through a ton of reviews and talking to other travelers who had done the trip, it just didn't strike us as very appealing. The main drawbacks to the basket ride are that they blast music very loudly the entire time, it's crowded with a ton of boats there all at the same time, and lastly, the guides are extremely pushy when it comes to demanding tips. All in all, this is a tourist gimmick activity, and whether you like it or not will entirely depend on your tolerance for that. Another tourist trap, although a lot less costly, is the night market in Hoi An. It's free to enter and walk around, but don't expect this to be even remotely authentic. Almost all of the stalls are filled with items that you can find around Hoi An at any time. They're just more expensive because now it's a night market. With that being said, it's still fun to walk around Hoi An at night and see the lanterns lit up. Enough of tourist traps. Let's talk about another huge calling card for Hoi An, and that is the beach. Running almost the whole way to Da Nang is a long stretch of beach that is perfect for relaxing on. Around the entrances, you'll usually find shops renting sun loungers, and you'll also typically find an entrepreneurial local walking along the beach waiting to sell you a cold drink if you don't happen to be close to a bar. If you prefer staying somewhere less cosmopolitan, then Hoi An is also a great base for doing day trips to Da Nang and to visit some of the famous sites such as Marble Mountain, which should definitely be high on your list, and the famous Bana Hills viewing platform. All in all, Hoi An is an absolute must-visit place on your trip to Vietnam, and it really doesn't surprise me that it's become such a popular spot for digital nomads to base themselves. It's affordable, pretty, easy to get around, and there's plenty of ways to keep yourself entertained. There's been a ton of info in this guide, but don't worry, you don't have to remember it all. Simply download our guide and map, which you can find in the description below, and you'll have all this information at your fingertips on your next trip. Make sure you check out our Vietnam mistakes video, where we teach you how to identify the best street food stalls so you don't have to spend your vacation being sick. You can watch the video right here.